Hello, Goobers. It's me, your favorite Goober. And a quick update for you today. This will be I have some good things going on career wise. I have been invited to a interview. So I'm just waiting for the date to come back to me. And I thought that was pretty cool. Um, I'm always kind of thinking of music and stuff with my story, so that's happening too, but I don't got really anything too specific to update you on other than that. Well, I guess, there's something cool that I could say. For my manga that I'm making, I've been toying with a cool idea, and I want to implement some things just because, like, by the nature of how my power system was created, it leaves some room for me to add certain things, but I don't know how far I want to take it. I realize now it's kind of similar. I didn't realize. It's kind of similar to Chainsaw Man and how the devils work. It's a little different. It's not like one for one, but the idea is there where like the human mind as a collective has the ability to create. And so, with that kind of idea, you can start to imagine a much wider variety of things than just elements. And I think that's one of the distinctions within my story is it's not like purely elemental, but I don't want to go too crazy and I don't want to do too much because I do at the end of the day want the story to be an elemental kind of story. Because that's what it was from the start and that's what it's going to be. But like, I've been toying with the idea of different concepts being brought to the forefront. And, I don't have any confirmation. I don't even know if I want to do this, but like, you've got basic things like life, death, time, these vast concepts that are recognized by the collective population. And it's like, those are only three things, and there's plenty more. Just gotta think of them. But like those three things, like, how would I balance them? Time, it's interesting. I just thought of something. Maybe this individual who is blessed by the time deity is just immortal. No time skipping shenanigans, no time leaping shenanigans, no future past traveling, just an immortal being. Somebody who has seen it all and will see it all. The worst kind of immortality, the one you can't turn off. A, the final black hole is gonna dissipate and you're still gonna be there. Although would they be spaghettified? No, they'd be immortal. Maybe they're immortal to time and its inevitable destruction, but they're still mortal. I don't know. I'm not doing time travel. I'll tell you that right now. That convolutes stories and he can never do it well. I think it devalues a story because you have to work within its paradox. The moment you introduce time travel, the moment you have to respect the paradox of time travel, and it's just not fun. But something where oh, this individual just does not age. They are quote unquote timeless. Um, maybe they're still mortal. With their age comes experience. If they're not aging, then their body is still in good physical condition, I would imagine. So maybe they could be super duper strong, very knowledgeable, very wizened by their experiences throughout history. That could be interesting. I've toyed with the idea as well, of life and death. I think those two concepts are very recognized by the vast population. Um, I say it like everybody isn't well aware of it. Um, and so, like, how would you incorporate the idea of life, the idea of death, and then give two different characters powers related to those things, right? Creation and decay. Seems a little cliche, but it also could be cool. Like, maybe this death individual is destined to destroy, and maybe they don't want to. Maybe that's too basic. Maybe that's too easy. Um, I can maybe twist. You see death and evil and decay, and then maybe that's, oh, they're actually good. They're not bad. But the person who can give and create, and maybe they're evil. Maybe that um, dual nature of these two things, kind of flipping it on their head, where it's like, oh, this one on the surface is usually characterized in a positive light, but they're actually evil. How could you make the power of creation and vitality like evil? How could you twist that? I don't really know right now. I'm spitballing ideas here, but it's like I've just been thinking about those because, like, the main power system is elemental, right? You have the four primordial elements. They were the first ones to be created by the human collective, and like you have fire, wind, water, earth, right? Flame was harnessed by humans, and it was cooking food. It helped to, heat up metals and pottery, and you can make utensils and shit like that, right? So it advanced the human population technologically speaking. I feel it's fair to say that, even though it's just fire, but harnessing fire and the properties of heat, if we're going to get more vague, the properties of heat were very important to the advancement of our society. You need air to breathe, it's integral. Without it, you're dead. You need water, it brings vitality to your plants, it brings life to you because you are, what they say, 80% water. It's a very important thing. You go 3 days without water, you're dead. But you can go 3 weeks without food. So, water is very important. And it's a very important thing with nature and all of that. As you know, the rain cycles are integral to the world, frankly. And on that topic, you have, you know, nature and the earth, the very thing you know, you can use the rocks and stones to, pummel open a coconut, for instance, or um, sharpen a stone and butcher an animal for consumption. These collective elements come together and they were recognized, and thus deities with respecting those elements came to be, the primordial four. Later down the line, society advances, science expands, and you have electricity and gravity, and those are the other two elements within my story. And those are elemental, right? It makes sense. They're reasonable. Um, Electricity has a subtype. The only one that doesn't have a subtype is gravity. That's both for a lack of creativity, And also, I think a lot of things to do with gravity are theoretical sciences, and implementing a power based on theoretical sciences just sounds not only difficult, but like it just might not fit within, a reasonable sense into the story. Because I would like to take science as a structure, still to be manipulated, because I'm not going to bound my story by the laws of science, but rather understanding the science to help maybe further the depth of some of the powers, right? Like, there's a lot that you can do with water, and the ability to control its temperature from hot to cold can allow you to do many things. And I have so many fun things planned for the water element that I'm afraid it's almost gonna kind of lessen the coolness factor of some of my other ones, except for Earth and nature. I can get real creative with those two. But like wind and electricity and you know fire, I'm worried. But besides the point. Ultimately, right, like they're all elements. And so when you start to look at these other things, like applying the logic of, the human collective birthing a deity of a certain like important concept, life, death, and time sound reasonable. And while the vast population of individuals might, you know, not know that these powers exist, I think it could be cool to still have like one or just one person per these like special elements. Maybe I can even think of a term and give them their own tier, right? While I try to balance them. I know it sounds weird, almost like some game dev speak here, but I do think it's important to balance your power system. Because if you don't, things get a little wacky, right? I don't want these things to just be overpowered. But also, it's important, like, when do I put this into the story? When does it become relevant? I have an idea for something I'd like to do, and it involves the death element. I'm like, I don't really know what to do with it, except for maybe put it way later in the story, kind of have this, right? Like, the idea is maybe put it in the beginning of the story, have like this idea somewhere, this concept half-acidly, not half-acidly, I guess it'd be intentional, but have this detail put somewhere. Maybe it's just haphazardly mentioned, or it's um, kind of vaguely brought up, or there's just this like background hint, or just some between the lines speak to kind of hint towards it, where it's like somebody will be chosen for this like life element, and somebody will be chosen with this death element. Uh, when that happens, like it's fated that they will fight. Maybe that's too cliche, you know. I don't know, but I just need someone to make it coherent. And the idea of time could maybe be the first introduction to this other tier of like deity blessed individual, where it's like, okay, you have the concept of time, the concept of life, the concept of death. These are very large concepts, but harnessing them is only granted to one person. Maybe that's the criteria and it's just a name, you know? That could be the case. Where it's like, okay, so if a person is the only one to be blessed by this deity, that means that they're within this tier. Maybe I can have more than one. I don't really know. I've only got these three. But then I've got like two other elements, which are like their own kind of thing. But they're very related to to their given element. So, spoiler alert, I mean, I've already spoken quite a bit of concept things that could come to be and would be very big, but like, big spoiler alert, click away if you want to care about my story, or if you're just interested, you know. To those who randomly find this video, and if it's not unlisted and I've actually started making this manga, don't tell anybody. I have this idea for two other elements. The first one is related to the moon deitas and the water element as a whole. And it's kind of an energy that empowers the water element. You're still using water and ice to make certain things, but you empower it with like this moon element, this moon energy. I don't really know what to call it yet. And this power is what makes the main character special. When that power eventually comes out and is shown off, it's kind of what's going to distinctify them as the moon blessed individual, and it's what takes them beyond, just somebody who can utilize the water element very well. They also have access to this enhancer, right? Because I wanted to approach this moon element from an angle that wasn't suffocating, if that makes sense. Because I don't want the moon element to be the thing where it's like, all right, we've expanded on the moon element. They're capable of using it now almost constantly. They've practiced. They are able to keep this energy output consistent. I don't want it to just be like, oh, okay, straight to moon element. I want it to be, okay, so you're using your water element, you're using it to a very effective level, and you're enhancing both your own defense, right? I have this idea for like a moon kind of like armor. I think it'd be cool. And then you have like just enhanced combat. So you're not really using a moon element, you're enhancing the water element with moon energy. And so that kind of leaves me with the creativity to understand that this is still water. This element is not moon, it's still water. And that's kind of what makes it a special quote unquote element, right? It's not really an element, but it's its own kind of thing in a way. And maybe it's fair to really call it the moon element, but it enhances the water element. I have to think about that. But like, I just want to create something special for that. The next one is for the fire element. This one is called the Phoenix Flame. So you have Tears of Fire, you have what's hotter, an orange flame or a red flame? I think it's an orange flame into a red flame into blue flame, white flame. White flame is something that is like known about. It's like, yes, it's a thing, but only so many people have used it throughout history. It's extremely rare to see the white flame or anybody harnessing it, and those who could can never immediately go to white, right? Imagine flames. It's kind of similar to like Super Saiyan levels in a way. It's like somewhat inspired by that. It's not literally the same system. I don't even know how it works. I've only ever seen clips of Dragon Ball Z. I'm sure it's a great system. I just don't know much about it. But from an uneducated perspective, it kind of seems like it's almost like the Super Saiyan system. So it's like, I think Goku was able to go blue, is what the community dubs it, I think. But like he had to learn how to do that first. Same concept kind of applies to these flames. So they get hotter and hotter and hotter. But throughout history, like those who could achieve white had to build up from it. Yeah, maybe they can immediately heat up into a blue flame, but it takes so much time, and then they're ready for white flame, and only so long can they use it before they start overheating. and maybe they start burning themselves, they start overexerting their energy, and it's just very draining. And so while it's a thing that exists, achieving it is nigh impossible. It's super duper rare, and it's just kind of like a thing in history that is known, but you don't really see very often. It's rare. Well, I have another element that's a little similar to how the moon one would work, right? Where it's like it enhances a certain element, but it is not really its own like element. It's just enhancing another element. The same concept applies for the fire and the Phoenix Flame. Phoenix Flame is beyond white. It is so unbelievably hot. Granted, White Flame, if I were to scientifically like be accurate, is so fucking hot that I think it's hotter than the surface of the sun. I think it's over 6,000 degrees Celsius before you reach white flame. So like I'll have to look it up, but it is insanely hot. Going hotter than that, I don't even know. Like I feel like you'd ignite the atmosphere at probably white flame. I don't know how hot it has to be to do that, but it would be so unbelievably hot. And it comes with its own like unique buffs to the flame element. But like ultimately what I'm trying to get at is I have these two concept powers that are in the same boat. And this boat is an enhancement type energy, you know? How these powers are obtained, I will leave that um, alone because I will not be spoiling, especially the second one. But like just the idea of these powers. The next thing I want to know is like how can I take that same concept and maybe apply it to the other primordial elements? Um, I don't know. I don't really know, especially with air. Really don't know. And then with earth, I feel like if you gave me enough time, I could come up with one. But air, no clue. I kind of lost track of why I was talking about this. I think it was because I was just talking about theoretical like elements for my story. Um, the reason this talk is even important is because I'm trying to produce a fun story that is unique enough that doesn't take too obviously from the creative sources that I've been inspired by throughout my life. I want to make sure that it has its own little flavor. And so to achieve that, I kind of started to feel like, okay, I can't really just do earth, wind, fire, and water. Like, I need something more. Okay, subtypes, it expands, but I don't want to get too crazy with them, so they're all going to have just one subtype. We'll make it easy. Gotcha. Okay. Well, we can work with that, but it's still just the four elements, and then I roll through to add electricity and gravity, and by how these deities are formed, that gives me a certain kind of time era to put my story in. So I'm looking for something a little modern, but it isn't like you're not going to see guns, you're not going to see cell phones, right? I kind of want maybe maybe we could do telecommunication, but you're not going to have a pocket phone, right? Something kind of like that. The technology isn't too advanced, but they're still using electricity. And so it was just kind of something that forced me to see in a certain way the era in which I put my story in. So that was cool. I was like, all right, that adds a little bit of spice. That makes it a little more modern. I like it. I'll make it my own custom modern because I don't want to do actual modern day, not at all. And so I was like, all right, cool. That adds a little bit more flavor. That's nice. I do like that. But what else? What else can I do? I was kind of thinking. I was like, well, I don't really. Don't really know. And then one day, this idea of like a death element, and so subsequently the life element, right? I was like, okay, how do I incorporate this? Okay, well, just by how the other powers came to be, it is very reasonable for a life and death to kind of exist. And then literally as I started making this video, I thought of time to add to that kind of category. And so I was like, okay, no, this is nice. But then I want to take a step back and I want to analyze, like, is this a good idea? Is this what I truly want? If I add these, how does it affect my overall power system? How does it affect, interactions between other powers? How does it affect just how I approach the entire story, right? Suddenly, if I introduce this, I have a guy who's effectively immortal, age-wise. He's still mortal, or girl, or whatever, they, them, I don't really know. Whatever I decide to make this character. Maybe they're so old that they just don't even care about the concept of gender. And, I don't know, some Testament type stuff from, like, Guilty Gear. I think that's how Testament operates. I don't want to be quoted directly. But the idea stands, right? Just like, how does this affect my power system, the way I approach my story, character interactions, the greater world as a whole of this story? It's interesting. Um, it's just you gotta think about it. I don't know. Perhaps I've yapped for too long, but I think it's cool. It's kind of annoying spoiling these cool things, but it's important to talk about it somewhere. And this video is probably going to be unlisted by the time I actually start producing the manga. So, to those of you who listen to this, thank you for your time. I very much appreciate it. I've got some fun things coming up ahead. Oh, it's funny. I always say it's going to be a quick update for you today, and normally it kind of is. I feel like I feel like the cutoff for quick is like 3 minutes. Saying okay, it's a little longer. This was, I don't even know how long, probably over 20 minutes. It's cool though. Um, it's cool. That being said though, thank you for listening to my yapping. I will be thinking about my story, and now you kind of know where I'm at with all the elements and that fun stuff. Peace out. Bye bye. Oh, and good night and good luck to you all.